Peace. Come on in.
Hey, Janine. Well, guess what? Hey, when I see you there, I get a little happy. Hey, Black Brown, I get a little happy when I see you. What? Baby, when I see you there, I get a little happy. Hey,
I instantly knew it's a mood improver.
There's a pain, see you walk in my direction, I go the other way. I start to stutter when I speak, try to stand on my knees, go away. What's happening to me? In your body, can you tell me what it means? I lay my head on my pillow, he got me staring out the window. We're gonna stop for a sign, that's the reason why, yeah. Hey, see you. Hey, Marlon, you sexy boy. Hey, oh no. When I see you. Hey, fellas, listen. I scribble X and O's on my notebook, checking out my hair and my nails. I feel myself up in the zone. I get nervous when you call. Say I'm not home. See your face. I hear my favorite song. Should I send an email at home? I wonder if you know, or do you have a clue? Yeah, I lay my head on my pillow. He got me staring out the window. We're gonna stop for a sign. That's the reason why. Yeah. Oh yeah. See you. Marlon, so sexy boy. Oh no. When I see you. Listen, something now is taking over me. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna run. I'm just gonna stand here and see. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And in many ways, this show is so quintessential go-go, quintessentially go-go, grown punk go. The crowd is killing me. My man in the front, too cool,
Hey, Fox, hold me down.
maybe
Listen.
too drunk to move.
Guess what? When I see you, yeah, yeah. Hey, sweet Sanita, hey, get happy when you party with me. Hey, Janine, when I see you, yeah, I get a little happy. Hey, Tony, I get a little happy when you party with me. Hey, Tim, when I see you, yeah, I get a little happy. Hey, Marlon, I get a little happy when you party with me. Hey, Jay, when I see you, yeah, I get a little happy. Hey, Nico, I get a little happy when I see you. What? Hey, when I see you, yeah, yeah. Hey, Playboy, I get a little happy. What? Happy when you party with me. Hey, hey, when I see you, yeah, 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 yeah.
wait a minute. Look, hey, what that
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome everybody to I Mix What I Like. Again, I'm Jared Ball. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the things. And ooh, what's going on with the stream? Did they get me? Why is it all blurry all of a sudden? All right, hopefully that'll work itself out as we get going. I don't again, I don't see what's I even got the Ethernet plugged in. So this is, I don't know what it is, but anyway, hopefully it'll work itself out. Please do come on in and let me see, maybe I'll hit a reboot real quick. But before I forget, I've already seen her in the chat. Big shout out to Chitty Matcha and the great interview that she just did on Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. Yeah, I don't know. This is not, I'm saying this is I am not on dial-up. This is a Chrome. I'm gonna do a quick restart of the browser because I don't know what's going on, but and I'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. And again, my apologies. But yeah, let me see if that works. Back in a quick second. All right. Did that work? Let's see. Did that fix anything? But in any event, yeah, it looks like it may have worked. At least a little bit. I don't know. Maybe not. I'm not sure what's going on. But in any event, ignore that and let's move on. Again, please, if you haven't, by the time you see with this, go check the great interview Chitty Matcha just did about her work on millennials. It was fantastic, and we do need to have more conversations with Chitty Matcha on these platforms. So for a bulk of my adult life, I thought it was my duty to I really did have I evolved a misconception about what was my duty to do with this frame that I do feel fortunate to have been born with. And I thought that meant I had to get as big as possible, and then I just wasn't disciplined about it. So it went from a strict diet of bench press to beer, pizza, and bench press, which is what became my diet for a lot of my 20s and early 30s. And that is not conducive to longevity and a healthy size. So, and when I look back at some of these videos, there's one in particular, I see myself in the video, and I remember thinking vividly, thinking, man, I look good today. Like I had my good shirt on, and I and I was like, my God, I was just enormous. And because of the way that I have to be communicated with, it which is my fault. It took a while for my wife to in her, powerful way, but subdued, powerful way, let me know with all love and respect. So yeah. And it's a struggle. It's a daily struggle. I wouldn't mind losing a few more. But and then my back is really what, anyway, but that's a whole other thing. But let's not dwell on that. And I feel like there's a lot of body shaming going on in my comment section around my weight. So, but listen, in all seriousness, this is, I said it in the chat in Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. So I got a number of things to get off the docket today because the timing of the schedule, and I'll be on the road tomorrow. We have a great show with Saturdays with Renee on Black Liberation Media tomorrow with Dave on Love. So please make sure you're there for that. And then Sunday, come back here where Hiram Rivera is going to join me for a discussion of the FIFA World Cup Palestine imperialism, boondoggle that they got going on. So Mr.
You just don't read, beloved.
Will be joining me here, and I hope you all saw him on Imperial 80s the other day, and wherever else you can catch Hiram. But so Sunday he'll be here, and so I wanted to get to a couple of things, and then so one of them was in part to address. So I had a student in class the other day ask me what did I think. They had been assigned something involving Dr. IbramXKendi and how to be an anti-racist in another class, and they wanted my opinion on it. And I didn't give a good enough answer, and in part because I'm not conversant enough with his work to be as critical of it as I think I am and am prone to be. So where I've seen him in interviews and presentations, and the arms going with that, the Anti-Racist Research Center that had gone, and all of that, I just was not moved. But I just, so I just said, what I told the student was, listen, I just don't, I said, look, I have a bias, and I'm prone to a certain bias and criticism, but I haven't read his work closely enough. I've only read bits and pieces of maybe one of his books, and then a few. I've read a number of, I've read more. To be fair, this is what I was really trying to say. I've engaged his work more through criticism of his work than I have his work directly. So I said, so that I don't think is methodologically where I should be if I wanted to form an actual critique. So I said, but then I just started looking around again and was, think, how might I bring some of this into the class, and looking at a couple videos and articles, and just on the side. I'm not, not going all the way back to actually read his work and all of that. And I ran into a couple things that I would want to share a little bit here. But as I'm watching Millennials Are Killing Capitalism and again, that great conversation with Chitty Matcha, and damn, I should have written it down. I'll find it. Towards the end, she gives an answer to the question of defining racism or something like that came up, something like that. And I put in the chat that she gave the best answer. So I'm going to go back and find it and actually use that when I go back next week and respond to my student more fully, or bring this back up in class, because I don't like leaving questions like that just dangling there. So but I'm saying, damn, so she gave the answer that I would have indirectly, not talking about Kendi, but that I would want to give about Kendi. I don't think they were talking about Kendi. So I said, wow, what perfect timing. So, all right, one of the things that I have here is, and this is where it started. Actually, let me go back to where it started. I was asked to look. This is where it all. And I'll mute it. It's just music playing, and the caption here says, "Imagine looking at this," meaning the woman standing here and saying something and spewing all types of racist rhetoric about Black people, and then saying, "I can't be racist, I'm Black." All right. And then as whoops, the caption, didn't I this is why I could have, man, I'm telling you, I promise you, I went into the actual post and because I knew I was having this problem before, and then this link came back up again. Because there's a long post here. Dang, how can why won't it let me go to the let's see, here we go. This was the post. All right, there we go. This is what I had linked it to. I don't know why this link didn't come on the first place. All right, saying people of color can't be racist because they are oppressed is exactly how New Age colonialism works and exactly how racism has been maintained. Saying Black people can't engage in measurable and observable anti-Black racist behavior makes it easy for white supremacist Nazis to incentivize people of color to do colonizers' work of being racist, which ultimately strengthens the structures that have existed since racism first began. In the global South, we often separate racism from colorism, acting as if they're not part of the same colonial structures meant to harm Black people or darker skinned people from the global South. When we say racism is intersectional, it's beyond Black and white, it's nuanced. And because we fail to see nuance, we often make blanket statements when it comes to describing racist behavior, which not many people have defined, or racism which has been well defined throughout history. Just because I'm Black does not mean I can't be racist. And I need you to hold on to IbramXKendi's definition of racist because it helps us truly understand why and how Black immigrants and Black conservatives in the United States can be racist. No one argues that white supremacists aren't racist, but for some reason, people of color who support white supremacy aren't, just because of their socially and politicized racial identity. Make that make sense. People of color can 100% engage in racist behavior that harms not only themselves, but their own people. Engagement in this behavior is not internal when others can tact or label their behavior bright as day. We are all responsible, not equally responsible. We all responsibility. We all share responsibility for reinforcing racism and dismantling it together. All right. So this is what had me remembering what I thought was by the way, I should also be fair that when I was sent on that wild goose chase many years ago to build a race and media research center, which is a story I've told and will share again and have in anyway. But one of the things I ended up doing was reaching out to Kendi when he was still at American University, building his institute there, to get advice. And he was very gracious, at least to take the call and have a conversation with me. So I'm always wanting to be fair about that. Just a very professional, collegial, nothing beyond or less than that. And that was that. So always to be fair, that's that. But this was always one of the issues that I thought. So even where this post starts in some way to talk, I thought importantly about colonialism and the role it plays in all of this, it then descends back into this whole point about racism just sort of being any act that is hostile towards any group that is defined as not your own. And then it does seem to take, so while they started in this post referencing colonialism and broader structures, they then walk back to Kendi's, which doesn't, as far as I've been able to tell, and I went back and watched a couple interviews that doesn't connect racism to anything about power or white supremacy or capitalism or colonialism in particular. Now, what I did see him say, and I don't know if I'm going to play any of that in these other clips, what I did see Kendi say, even in his own, I think, liberalizing definition and approach to racism, he was using it in one of the interviews that I was looking at to make the point that this is why Black people, for instance, shouldn't look at immigrants from wherever, Latin America or the diaspora, as the enemy, or because of their being brought here or invited here or encouraged here to upset the labor market and to deflate wages or any of that, to put people in competition with one another. But he doesn't acknowledge the connection. I'm not going to get into who with the chicken or the egg and all of that came first, but there's no acknowledgement in his discussion, as far as I could tell, recognizing the relationship between colonialism of whatever variety, imperialism of whatever variety, capitalism, and white supremacy, and then made it seem as though all groups operate and benefit from racism equally. And with no even discussion, as I was able to tell, and I'm happy to be corrected on any of this, of even the origins coming out of Europe of these social categories. So his definition of racism is circular. He defines racism as a powerful collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequality that is substantiated by racist ideas. So that's funny. This is again perfect, because one of the little clips that I did find does make this point. Now, admittedly, I'm not a fan of the source of this, and I'm putting my I'm prioritizing my petty over politics in this instance.
People be like, why do you go out of your way to be petty? And I'd be like, who said it was out of my way? It's directly on my route every single time. Petty-luya.
So this is not me co-signing the source, but to the point, let me just skip.
How do you define racism?
Sure. So racism, I would define it as a collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. Sure. A collection of racist policies that lead to racial inequity that are substantiated by racist ideas. And anti-racism is pretty simple, using the same terms. Anti-racism is a collection of anti-racist policies leading to racial, anybody want to take a guess? Equity that are substantiated by anti-racist ideas.
So that was my impression. So that was what I was just trying to, when I was responding to my student, I was trying to find a way to get to, you know, there has to be some materiality in that recognizes that there is a specific group that not only originated these particular categories and approaches, weaponize them, but benefits mostly from them. And they are the only real minority that is worthy of consideration in this world, as far as I consider, which is elite white men. So that is like the smallest group of people based on these categories they largely created that have, and then they have damn near everything. They have 54 trillion in wealth at this, as was reported recently, which is, again, how 1% of the population has twice the wealth of the annual GDP of the country they created and benefit from most of all. It's just bananas nuts. Don't tell me that. Please don't tell me Paul Street is defending Chomsky, because that's another thing. I was just, yeah. I'm still mad that 11 years ago I got in trouble for interviewing him. So he better not be falling off like that. Anyway. So, all right. So let me just quickly, so then I saw this other thing. I did look at this other longer interview. I'll just bring it to one part that I wanted to play here in this in this TED talk, where, and I listened to it, I watched it, and then I also searched through the transcript to confirm, and I will not bury the lead by reporting from the beginning that he never, in this is from 2020, so I admit it's old, but you know, I'm not pretending to be doing a Renee spreadsheet worthy deep dive investigation into his work, but I did watch this, and no, there's no mention of capitalism, colonialism of any form or variety at all. But I did just want to play this one question and answer that I thought was also relevant here.
People of color commonly say, I can't be racist because I'm a person of color. And then some people of color say they can't be racist because they have no power. And so first and foremost, what I've tried to do in my work is to push back against this idea that people of color have no power. There's nothing more disempowering to say or to think as a person of color than to say you have no power. People of color have long utilized the most basic power that every human being has, and that's the power to resist policy, and that's the power to resist racist policies. That's the power to resist a racist society. But if you're a person of color and you believe that people coming here from Honduras and El Salvador are invading this country, you believe that these Latinx immigrants are animals and rapists, then you're certainly not, if you're Black or Asian or Native, going to be a part of the struggle to defend Latinx immigrants, to recognize that Latinx immigrants have much to give to this country as any other group of people. You're going to view these people as, quote, taking away your jobs. And so therefore, you're going to support racist rhetoric. You're going to support racist policies. And even though that is probably going to be harming you, in other words, it's going to be harming, if you're Black, immigrants coming from Haiti and Nigeria. If you're Asian, immigrants coming from India. And so I think it's critically important for even people of color to realize they have the power to resist. And when people of color view other people of color as the problem, they're not going to view racism as the problem. And anyone who is not viewing racism as the problem is is not being anti-racist.
So I'm watching this and I'm thinking, so this is, I understand perfectly well why he has sold so many books and is on a TED Talk, and why my students are being assigned his work in other people's classes. But I also noted, by the way, I'm reminded of this just now, that part of my response to the student was to remind them that we are also reading George Jackson. So I said, while my answer is going to be insufficient, continue to pay attention as we go through Blood in My Eye the rest of the semester, and see where you can identify the differences that I'm not going to be able to isolate in this conversation. But very quickly, and because that was indicative, at least to this point, of the rest of that conversation, there's never an investigation or a discussion of capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy. There's no, or that you end up, I think, again, I can see why he would be so well recommended, because it doesn't encourage anybody to look at any of the geopolitical, material, even immaterial cultural forces that move people in certain directions, or that look at white supremacy as being the font and the beneficiary of all of this. So like, it doesn't, it's so everybody, so I could see, whites in the audience could be like, yeah, man, yeah. Black people hate brown people too. And when black people hate brown people, that's the same thing as when I hate both of them. And it's like, let me get Kendi's book. So I said, so he seems to ignore the production of, and then, then I also said, and this was also, again, mentioned in Shitty Bonch's discussion with millennials around technology and propaganda, that Kendi also ignores the production of racism through the construction of consciousness and social relationships. So, and because so many of us around here focus a lot on counterinsurgency and psychological warfare and et cetera and so forth, sorry, I just got a message. But we and even just critical media literacy, we recognize that so much of these attitudes are constructed on purpose and for very specific reasons. So when they're when that's just removed, Oh, by the way, before I forget, I watched another one of my, and this is another space, another one of these atheist debate spaces, talked about they got their channel snatched out of nowhere for nothing. So, just in case, I am asking people to sign up on my Patreon and for free. You don't have to just sign up over there for free. And I'm going to use that as the newsletter that they are talking about on their channel as a just in case. So just in case, please sign up, and do the same with Black Liberation Media too. Please sign up on the Patreon over there as well, so that if there's just an in case, there's another place where you can get alerts and content, et cetera, and so forth. So just sign up for free over there. At minimum, and thank you. Another thing, though, I did talk to Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows yesterday, and there's a pathway to solving this small, very small issue of a very few of you, and I appreciate you wanting my memoirs or my autobiography. And what I've said is, so stay tuned. Tentatively, but we need to raise some money, because Dr. Burrows ain't free and he ain't cheap, and he deserves the money. Because what I want it to be is a book, and if it happens, and as told to Dr. Burrows, because I don't write well. I don't want to write. I don't I don't want to do it. And I'm very skeptical about the whole thing. What he did tell me though, and again, we'll come back to all of this, but with more detail. What he did give me a very good, I think, principled way for me to justify doing it. But we would do that through Patreon. So that would be a whole separate thing over there. We would have to, and we would have, and that part would require something beyond free, because we would have to find, this would have to be some fundraising. So I'm thinking of doing like a series or like a series of just video presentations like this, outlining what might be in the book, but then using that to fundraise to get Todd to actually write the book. So stay tuned if you're, Dr. Burroughs is a Jersey diva, and he's also one that has, because of his principled political stances, he's been treated by the state and society as one as you would expect. So, okay. Tentatively, yes, a follow-up with Claudia about many more things beyond liberation theology, but yes, that is something that is tentatively, but she is an actual organizer and is actually busy, and and during semesters I get more busy temporarily. So, but yeah, and thank you for asking for that reminder. And also the Patreon will also be important because of the graphic novel that Samantha and I are working on for the Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, which I'm very excited by. So please, at least start off with the free sign up over there on Patreon, and then if you're moved by any of these other projects, we can go from there. All right. So, all right, the rest. So, just the rest of my notes here about the Kendi thing. That was a whole. I completely interrupted myself. What are the policy? Oh, so I actually like, to the extent that there was anything that I appreciated in what Kendi was doing, I'd like this approach to policy. I like that there's some focus on policy. Now, I didn't see him define it very clearly. Like, I didn't see what kinds of policies he would like to see. He mentions in that discussion there reparations, but it's not. I don't know where else or in his work he actually properly defines or more explains what form he means by that. But it just comes across as anyone can be racist. He's making an appeal to whites largely, and anyone, but whites largely, to just think of themselves consciously as racist, come to terms with that, and then change that. There's no mention of capitalism or socialism. He calls at one point actually for diversifying boards of directors. I did catch that part. So I was like, that's one of the policies he advocated. And I was like, that's Renee already exposed that in terms of the DEI and the Target thing, where DEI only benefited, what was it, 3% diversity increases on boards, on the board of directors, but not employment. Like the diversity of diversity laborers went down, and a slight uptick. So that's what he said George Floyd's video forced people to confront how racism makes them feel. And then he seems to come across as that no one benefits more than any other from a system of white supremacy, which he does not reference. And it's not just that Black people think that Latinos are being, right, it's not that just Black people think Latinos are being used to take jobs and drive down wages. It's that this is part of a colonial capitalist project, and not just one based on, I haven't addressed my racism. Right, exactly. So it's when there are Black people hating on, being prejudiced against Latinos or others, it should be discussed in the context of colonial exploitation, of white supremacy, of capitalist hostilities induced in that. not in let me just think of how am I being racist when I'm responding to what I'm perceived and I'm being encouraged, remember, being encouraged to perceive through that white supremacist, the trickle down effect of white supremacy in media being projected through Black outlets, in conservatively encouraging ever more so that Black America isolate itself and well, not isolate itself, but team up only with white America and no one else. That didn't seem to be accounted for in Kendi's argument here. So in his conception of things, Black people would look at Latinos as having been encouraged. Well, he doesn't account for that. So it's just Black people see someone and see them taking their job and then hate on them as would any other white person or anyone else. And then this is not explained in any other way than that a Black person should then stop and say to themselves, no, I'm being racist. Let me stop being racist. Now, and then Kendi would then say, and then advocate for policies that would actually address the concerns. Okay, well, what would those policies be? Reparations and diversifying boards of directors. And then, as he says, and then in other words, these racist policies are designed to aid colonial extraction and social order where whites benefit the most, but that part is left out. So, all right. Moving on. That actually took longer than I thought. Sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to take as long as it did. I am. Thank you. I am I'm at least familiar with Dr. Chandra at Wayne State, and in fact, I'm about to have lunch with her former chair in a little bit. So if I can just big time it, no, I'm just playing. But yeah, I am familiar. I can't say I'm that deeply familiar with her work yet, but I'm aware that it's there and sound. So, and I feel like I just read a reference. I think she was just cited in something. Was it what Dr. Brown was writing? Anyway, but thank you for the shout. Saw Cam James, you mean, new video about radicalization. I saw that too. And he didn't mention my name or our discussion, but he mentioned that he had been changed by the whole Henry Louis Gates foray into the madness of Black and Jewish relations, the relationship between Jews and Black people. So all right. I got sent this, and let's have a look. Godfrey's back.
We should have our own thing and stop going to these things. Start getting validation for these motherfuckers. It's the same thing with the food industry. They don't want to give a Michelin star to Tatiana, which has been killing it in New York City. It's because it's a Nigerian owned. They don't want to give a Michelin star. Them, you know? Why are white people telling us about how good food tastes when your food is bland as? Why aren't the food experts Black? Our taste buds, you know, if black people like something is good, it's really good. If a white person said something's good, I don't trust it. What the? This is ridiculous. I just and anybody white that is really twisting the I'm saying, then don't off. Don't listen to what I'm saying. This is a humanity thing. This is an exhaustion thing. This is something where we're tired. Isn't this race thing is so tiring? So tiring, man. It's the same shit every year. We got to make speeches. We count. We want a seat at the table. the table. We got enough wood to build our own table. This is what I'm saying. And I really feel like we don't have enough value in ourselves. We think we can't do it. And I know we can do it. We got all these great minds, we got billionaires, we got millionaires, we got enough black people, we got we have the African continent, we got Caribbeans, and all the sellout black women and men, them. We have enough people that love themselves where we can pull our shit together and stop going to these award shows that disrespect us. Stop being side-eyed when you're sitting around. Maybe they making stupid ass jokes on the side. You know, enough of that. I just think it's nice when we are all together. You see how comfortable we are. We're worth everything. We are sellable in the box office. We sell. Look at from Black Panther to Sinners to all kinds of shit. Wesley Snipes saved Marvel. Wesley Snipes did. Blade saved Marvel. Period. We're marketable, motherfuckers. And I think that our disunity is what they're counting on. They want us to just pass up, call them and move the on. They want that move the on. Enough of that. No, we need to really analyze this, really have value for ourselves, man. We really do. Once I got to the NAACP Awards, I said, man, this is amazing, dog. No judgment, no nothing. You understand? We got to start to value ourselves to where we know that our award shows are valuable. The Oscars, the Golden Globes, and they keep snubbing us left and right. I'm saying them. If they don't want to change, let's not our presence don't need to be there, because half these races need our presence to exist anyway, because we're the ones that created these motherfuckers, man. I'm saying this. Yes, I'm saying it. Why can't we make up a new award show? It's all made up. The Oscars. What about the Poitier Awards? Sidney Poitier.
Remember when Ntume talked about how Poitier never worked with a black director? That's in many ways perfect. Oh, man.
Poitier Awards. What about the James Earl Jones Awards? What about the Cicely Tysons, the Tyson Award? Make our own. We got the ability to do it. I'm just suggesting now. I'm just throwing that out there. Because motherfucker, I don't know about y'all, I'm fucking tired of this same old bullshit. For real, yo. That was Tourette's, guys. Sorry about that. Guys, I was watching some highlights from the NAACP Awards. I'm gonna give a shout out to Deion Cole for the funny ass jokes.
All right, I'm gonna just stop it at that. Because I know the reason it was sent me by a couple of folks was the we have the millionaires and the billionaires to do. So first of all, I just want to say, again, like with most of where I end up starting my criticism, there is a foundation of agreement and recognition, and I get it. I get it. You know, all of the whole thing where I end up feeling like there are limitations on where Godfrey is politically, is that he's saying that the NAACP was, for instance, the NAACP was an example of some advanced, improved condition, not recognizing, and this is sort of where most of my focus these days is, not recognizing that the NAACP, Image Awards, and all of that are themselves indirectly appeasing and meant to appease white audiences, if not directly through their watching or participation, but through their advertising, investment, platforming, the selection and presentation of blackness, the shaping politically of black politics, because of course the NAACP ultimately is a funnel to the Democratic Party, and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. So yeah, but and that's sort of where I think the joke about Sidney Poitier is perfect. That Poitier can be a symbol of in Godfrey's argument there of black progress and solidarity, and Poitier was someone who would not himself work apparently with a black director. So shout out to him, to May Gant, and the need for third cinema. I was also thinking that all the people that he was naming, Poitier, Cicely Tyson, all these other people, who again I think was another one who I think it's fascinating. Just 6 degrees. My mother was in her acting classes in New York back in the day, but they, but as great as they are, or whatever we think of them, their career, we only know of them largely because they were in white media product. So that is the contradiction. Now, again, the other thing is he's also saying what many of us would say in a different way. If there was this level of Black solidarity and Pan-African solidarity, yeah, any number of things could happen. So, but yeah, is there enough money in the Black community to put on a nice award show? Sure. Does it mean it would be on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu? Maybe not. Maybe it's on YouTube. Maybe does it have the same level of sponsors? Probably not. And then would it have the same number of viewers? Maybe. I would watch it. But then politically, why would they do that? Because the people in the Black community that have that much money have largely had to make that much money by having social, political, familial ties with the ruling white elite. So would they want to mess up those relationships by doing something like that? Because again, that's why I keep coming back to that iron triangle of you can't be rich, famous, and radically political. And that might start heading too much in the wrong direction. And then the money that these people have might start to dry up. The investments and support might start to dry up on Tubi. That's yeah, no doubt. But it would be great. And then yes. Exactly. That would definitely end racism and imperialism. That would do it. That would absolutely do it. Poncho was exactly right. Oh my goodness. And that's right. The Spy Guard, the Sping Guard or the Spy Guard Award. That's again, that's sort of the whole the part of the trick bag there. So okay. Hey, listen. I just got this sent to me this morning, and this I haven't even really watched it. It just looked like, I think it looks like a shout out, and I'm just thoroughly honored and impressed by this. I hope I'm not setting myself up, but I thought I saw enough of it that it was at least that, and was tagged in it. So I'm assuming that people who, but then again, sometimes I get tagged in stuff that hating on me, but I just, in general, I think this is going to be great, and I'm thoroughly appreciative.
The Vernon Doctrine of Black Media Avoidance. The Vernon Doctrine of Black Media Avoidance is a concept developed by Dr. Jared Ball, a professor of communication studies at Morgan State University. It argues that no oppressed group, but particularly Black people, should look to mass-produced media created under capitalism and white supremacy to find authentic representation of themselves. The doctrine holds that all mass media, no matter how well-intentioned, carries built-in distortions. Why? Because in order for any creator to access a large platform, compromises with the existing power structure are inevitable. Wow. Those compromises don't just disappear. They get embedded into the final product, shaping the stories that get told and how they get told. Now, the part that makes it tricky is that the more talented the creator, the harder those compromises are to spot. A less skilled filmmaker might produce something where the distortions are obvious, stereotypes, questionable jokes, narratives that just feel off. But when you're dealing with a highly talented creator, the art is so compelling that you might not even notice when it's being conceded. Now, the Vernon Doctrine isn't saying never watch Black media. What it's saying is never go into it expecting to see yourself authentically reflected. Be aware that what you're consuming has been filtered through systems that were never designed to represent you honestly. And if you're not conscious of that, you risk walking away with messages and ideas about yourself that were shaped by forces working against your interests. I learned about this by watching FDSignifier on YouTube, and I highly recommend his channel and his video essays. But this concept doesn't just apply to movies and TV. I see the Vernon doctrine playing out in spaces much closer to my own work. And
hold up, tell him, Yipper, I got videos too. Maybe not video. I don't have FDSignifier essays, but I got videos too. He could have recommended my channel.
Part 2, we're going to talk about what happens when this same dynamic shows up in academic publishing and why Black scholars have been dealing with their own version of this for a long time. I'm Dr. Van, here to help you understand a critical analysis of popular media is never about to let the master's tools dismantle the master's house.
Hey, Dr. Van, salute. Thank you very much. And absolutely. And Yipper, I appreciate you balancing it out. Thank you for balancing it out. Always here to balance it out. If I ever get too happy, Yipper's right there to and you need that. You need that. And yeah, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about this before we wrap today. I did see FD, and I actually had to apologize to him because I didn't watch it all the way. I did exactly what you're not supposed to do. I watched the first part. I saw where I got reference towards the beginning, and I was like, my man, I think you got it wrong. And he was polite. He said, please just check it out. He even said you could skip to this part of the video and see, and I ended up watching the whole thing, which I actually really enjoyed. I thought it was excellent. I I just didn't watch long enough to see how he was setting up the explanation in the end. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit before we get out of here. So, but yeah, no doubt, Yipper, thank you very much. I pulled a Dr. Malvo and you know, except let me not say anything. Except I apologized. I corrected course and apologized. And I never said anything publicly disparaging. I think that's fair to say. I didn't go on video and start calling FD a bunch of names and all of that. Yeah, it was because I was like, oh. But I did. I apologized. I absolutely apologized. And then I told him I thought the video, which I do, I thought it was great. But yeah, Dr. Van, I got a channel too, my man. No, I'm just saying. No, I actually really like that. That was the whole point of the Vernon philosophy. There's obviously way more in-depth, important theory that inspired the idea, the approach, but as a teaching device, as I think a political organizing device, I think it's been very helpful, and I appreciate it. And much like when Renee has used it and described it, I think Dr. Van did a better job than I've done in explaining my own device. So I appreciate that. That was dope. All right. So the other day, speaking of Renee, on Saturdays, on a special Saturdays, on a Thursday, when we were talking to Naveed Farnia and Issam about Iran, I had mentioned that I had just for that conversation, just said, let me just look real quick at Iran in film. I am teaching my sociology of mass communications. There is a section on film that we're going to talk about, and you know that this might be relevant for. We've already watched Occupation of the American Mind to get them sort of somewhat situated on what. And to your point, Natze, Iranian film may indeed be great. I am too unaware and uninformed to speak intelligently about that. I was more interested in where Iranians show up in popular American film, in the dominant narratives that would have more to say on what U.S. citizens think and feel about what they don't know anything else about. And I did come across this Hollywood Reporter article, which is, I think, mistaken on many levels, but was at least somewhat of an interesting starting point, how movies and pop culture made us see Iran differently. And as I mentioned yesterday on with Renee, well, a number of things. Actually, it says here, this past Monday, because this is written, let's see, I'm sorry, this is Steven Zaitchik from March 5th of this year, so yesterday. Wow, so I must have been among the first to find this, and the algorithm sent it right away. Salute to whatever arrangement they have with the algorithm. It starts by saying, in early 1991, just a few years after the end of the Iran-Iraq War, American audiences were feted with Not Without My Daughter, a Sally Field film that touched on some of the most harrowing fears that an American could experience, also some of the most offensive ones. It was disgusting. That film, when Jared and Mtume get to the Imperial 90s, maybe they'll do that film because oh my goodness. But this past Monday, the article says, 35 years after Daughter's released in theaters, and with his nation's tyrannical regime teetering, Jafar Panahi, Iran's cinematic poet laureate and lately his country's explainer-in-chief, was a television guest along with his translator on Jon Stewart's Night of the Daily Show. So already you see them, look at how they're describing Iran, right? Not explaining how Iran got here, not explaining the US's role in Iran, none of that, right? And by the way, so then, oh, damn. So I went and watched this interview. I don't know anything about Panahi, and I don't know, forgive me, I don't remember hearing his name pronounced on the show. I did watch the interview, though. Where he, through his interpreter, gave this interview with Jon Stewart. But what is clear about Iran's cinematic poet laureate is that he is extremely pro-US. So he and John didn't have a conversation about, again, what the conversation we had yesterday with Renee, or that we see throughout it, critically thinking media spaces. It was a Jon Stewart reminding how liberal he is and why he has been so successful on Comedy Central for so long, hosting this discussion with this filmmaker where everything was about the authoritarianism of Iran, the freedom of the West, the ability to make beautiful films and powerful films despite the repression of his home country and the censorship and the violence and the brutality. And I mean, that was the whole conversation. It was just repeated over and 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 over again throughout, like a 20-minute conversation. It was even like an extended, for what I remember those interviews being. So it works perfectly. So for it is perfect for why the Hollywood Reporter, having already dismissed everything as the tyrannical regime and saying that it's teetering, not because of some illegal imperial aggression. So again, even if you don't like Iran's leadership, the unjust, felonious regime that is illegally bombing it should be more of the center of the discussion than just the fact of it teetering, if in fact that's even true. And all the reports that we seem to get, including for what we heard yesterday, that's not the case. That it's this country that's not ready for what's going on over there. So anyway, but then they go through a list of a bunch of movies I admit I have not either heard of or seen. But they use all these buzzwords that I'm disturbed by, like saying that the film humanized an Iranian character in a way Daughter never did. Again, Daughter is bad, so they're right about that. But that doesn't mean that what they're promoting here is good. And I don't like when the West or Western outlets talk about humanizing the so-called other. It makes me suspicious. Then we get movies that are recommended from Adam Sandberg or something recommended from him because he dropped a viral photo that is caricaturing an Iranian leader. This is like a good thing. No one knows about Persian Cats. I don't know about the film, I admit, but that it was a big splash at Cannes, I admit, made me, like, And then you get Panahi's film, This Is Not a Film. And he's saying that this is titled, This Is Not a Film, because it's an ironic shot at the censorship of film. So by calling it not a film, it's a way of claiming to circumvent the censorship. But again, I haven't seen it, but it just, in his discussion, his pro-Western and I again, no wonder he's become, as they said in this article, the spokesman of the country in the West. And then, as I raised on the show, that they claim here the percentage of Americans with a favorable overall opinion of Iran went from a paltry 2% in 1990 to an at least not shameful 15% in 2020. Again, as if that's a good thing. And again, saying that these films had anything to do with it. And I don't know that, again, they're saying, according to Gallup, that it had plenty to do with it. I didn't investigate the poll well enough to know how they made that claim. But to the extent that there has been this uptick, it's been only to the extent, from the way these films are described and the way Panahi is discussed, the way he's self-describes in his discussion with Jon Stewart, I'm only left to conclude that if this uptick is real, it's based on some liberal notion that this horrible regime is suppressing any potential well-meaning humanity in the Iranian people. And to that extent, America, the United States, is willing to move it up to 15%. But more to the point that I also brought up on, right, I said in the Panahi Daily Show interview, he's there to condemn Iranian leadership, and does it ever get raised that the leadership is the result of the U.S. imposition? No, it doesn't. So I just had made a note to ask myself. So as I also noted again, and this is not, I admit my methodology is should be held up for some criticism here, but I just did a Google search, films using Iranians as bad guys. So for all those films that I would argue were listed in that previous article, even to the extent that they're better than these, they're not promoted, they're not as well known, and then I don't certainly think that they do anything to undermine the narratives that we get from these more popular films. 300. And the way Persians are depicted there, that was, in part 2. Or no, I said it was part 2. They were talking about the original from 1962 film. I had forgotten about that one. Apologies. But Argo, Not Without My Daughter, Top Gun. And then, of course, in Homeland, shows like that. Iran is, they're constantly, and then of course, for those of us who might remember of a certain age or political awareness historically, George Bush Jr. called them part of the axis of evil just not that long ago. And then even my students reminded me that Iran is a target in one or another Call of Duty scenarios that Grammy Award-winning rappers have signed on to participate in producing music for. So yeah, we just shouldn't be surprised when we see a lot of the confusion that we see and a lot of the ignorance around and a lot of the justification for what's going on right now. All right. Let's back away from the more serious. This is some silliness that was sent me, and for any of you who certainly are of my age, but who would have explored the nightlife in DC in the I'm assuming this goes back to the mid 90s, certainly through the 2000s. You would know who this man is and would have been at one of his clubs and at least heard the name. Of course, I'm talking about MarcBarnes, and who just made a recent trip to Earn Your Leisure. And a number of people tagged me and sent me this. So we're only going to watch this little clip of this longer interview, which I have not watched in full. I just was not, just didn't have the time or the emotional energy or whatever. But here we go.
Difference between black money and white money. There's no club that says they're going to start out black. They're not going to do it. They're going to get the white money. They think white money is it. Friday night was my black night. Saturday night was my white night at Dream. Friday night was doing $250,000. Saturday night was maybe doing $80,000. You just can't get it. The difference, and nobody understands it. Do you want Neiman Marcus or do you want Walmart?
Parking, coat check, drinks, bottle service.
Bottle service, but I didn't even know back then.
So there's more money with the black.
It crushes. Nowadays, there are no clubs that stay white.
All right, there's no club that stay white because black people spend more money on nightlife than white people.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
White people spend money on drugs.
Inside the club.
Inside the club.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. You can say allegedly, except that I would do 2,500 white people here at Park when I opened. I didn't want to cannibalize love. So I said, I brought this white boy in from Vegas. We're going to tell everybody, you own the joint when I open Park. You own the joint. We're doing 2,500 people a night. I'm doing $40,000, $50,000. I'm like, $20 there. I'm watching bartenders. I'm watching the staff. I'm like, how the fuck are y'all stealing my money?
They just buying beer. That's when we get the 250 cameras.
Yeah.
The black people, how much they doing?
Oh. So then I decided I did a black party on a Thursday. On a Thursday, I did 75. I only got 1,200 people. On Friday, I'm doing 45. Something's wrong with this equation. I'm doing 2,500 people. I said, we're going to try the black thing on Friday. I went from 45 to 135. What you doing?
That's going to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's going to be Friday, Sunday.
There's no question.
So again, that's the only part of the interview that I've seen. So we'll give Earn Your Leisure the benefit of the doubt, and because I know that these are expert financiers and analysts, historians, and interviewers. So I'm sure it was covered, just some of the basics off the top of my head that I would think that I'm sure they investigated more thoroughly. Is the fact that MarcBarnes is talking specifically about Washington, D.C., one of the blackest, relatively speaking, richest communities, bougie communities in the history of humanity, is that at all relevant to the conversation about how relatively well he was doing? Did they ask what happened to those clubs? Where are they now? And why he only, as far as I'm able to tell, has only the Park restaurant left? 10 years ago, Washington Post and other magazine, Washington area news outlets were talking about how DC had, as a city, had moved beyond the nightlife. And and that's one of the reasons why his club started closing and getting shut down. And there was some issues with a liquor license that he didn't pay up on, and some violence and this, that, and the third. I don't know, but ultimately, what I think was going on was another point that I'm sure they investigated in that discussion, that the city gentrified, continued to gentrify, and much to the opposite of Barnes, what he was saying is that this idea that when Black people show up, that's when the clubs do well, and that's when everything gets good for the owners. So that's what the owners of clubs want. Not really. Because remember, as Ivan was reporting in my research back in the day, club owners were saying we have to unblacken these spaces because white folks and others are moving in. And they don't want the go-go. They don't want the percussion, not because, of course, the music is because of the element that comes with the music. So I'm sure they got into all of that and explained how somehow the overwhelmingly Black and bougie DC particular setting that MarcBarnes was in is somehow exportable nationally, duplicatable nationally, and how others have found ways to circumvent the more real influences of, well, everybody's racist, as Kendi was telling us, but the anti-Blackness in particular that says when Black people show up, property values, everything goes down, and then clubs get shut and moved out into the county and elsewhere, and so on and so on and so on and so forth. So I'm sure they got into it. So it's my fault for only looking at that little bit of a video. But that to me was wild. And then, again, not Renee level research, but I just was looking around and was like, really? Because I'm sure they get into the details. So I should have just watched the whole video and I would have gotten all the data. But when I started doing the research and asking Google and Google Scholar even about what are the demographics for nightlife in the United States, most of the demographics break down along lines of class and generation and not race. So again, there's a lot to be desired in my levels of research here and so on, but I was struck, what struck me was this statistic, for instance: U.S. bar and nightclub market size reached $36.4 billion in 2024. One, I'm suspicious that that's driven largely by black consumers. Two, I'm driven by the more important question of redistribution. So even if it is driven by Black consumers into Black-owned spaces, where is the benefit to the Black community of that generated wealth? But there was nothing in here about most of this coming from Black people or white people or others. It was mostly, and this also talks about the UK and all the and as well, but it was more about, I don't know, club size and the age of the people going and the cost of stuff and all that other, it wasn't, there was nothing in there that supported his claim. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. So that's my response. That's my response. And look, MarcBarnes got my money. He got my fair share of money. My so-called bachelor party was in one of his clubs. So, you know, I used to be at U Street, and when I wasn't at the better State of the Union, I would slide over to every once in a while to Republic Gardens and all his, you know, his other, you know, I've been to Dream and Love and Live and all, whatever they were renamed each week. I've been to all of them. I was at all of them at one point or other. So he got my money. So I feel like I have a right. I have a right. Yeah, I mean, this is Leah. This is another good point. Like DC, this is what I'm saying. Like, if people would really have to have a better appreciation and understanding for DC, and if they did, you know, like the Raven is saying here, I should be calling them Bamas. And once upon a time, I did call them Bamas. But, you know, then you know, somebody did tell me, you know, you being disrespectful to the Black Southern roots. But I was like, look, it's not my fault. I didn't create what was popular in the area. I'm conditioned by my conditioning. Yeah, exactly. Nobody would, and by the way, that was also true. One of the reasons why I didn't go to his clubs very often was because I didn't have the money for the coat check and the parking, and I definitely never did bottle service. I was, and it was from one of his clubs that one of my funniest jokes, like moments, was I had met a woman in the club. I'm doing very well. Whatever my game, usually I didn't have game, but the game was working. Everything, the vibe, dancing, we go out together, we like headed out together, we go back, we walk. I'm thinking this night is gonna end lovely. We get to my car, and I promise you, it is just like you would have seen in the best film, like in a hilarious comedy. I mean, it was, she looked at the car and I started laughing. Like, I wasn't even mad. I saw her face and the way she looked at the car and looked at me and then thought about her life and what choices she was about to make. And she said, nope. Honestly, don't even remember what she said. She just was like, nope, I'm good, and walked herself back to the club. And I stood there in that Reeves Center parking garage. And got in my little Toyota Tercel and drove it home. My little pizza delivery Toyota Tercel and drove it home. And I was cracking up. I promise you, I was mad. I was a little bit disappointed because I thought, you know what I thought. I thought it was, you know. But outside of that, I was cracking up. I was like, I can't even be mad. And I was thinking, you know, I'd offer you a ride back to the club, but man, that's one I wish somebody had that on tape, because that moment was priceless. I promise you, I was laughing before. I mean, the look on her face. And I don't know what I was just so caught up in the moment. I was like, I'm good. This is good. What could go wrong now? What could go wrong? Oh man. So MarcBarnes, I blame you for that too. So I have a right to be hostile. All right. Woo. All right. I'm going to take a quick bio break. So I set this up perfectly because since his passing recently, I've been revisiting for my classes and otherwise MichaelParenti's work and some of his videos, and I found this fascinating short clip where he ends up hating on one of my favorites to hate on, and it was quite delicious. So But no, it wasn't. No, it was just a Toyota. It was a 1992. No, a 1993, because I bought it right out of the Navy. And I bought a 1993 Toyota Tercel, a two-door Toyota Tercel. They don't even make them anymore. And I started delivering pizzas, which is how I ended up meeting Vernon, which is the connection back to the Vernon philosophy. See, it's all, technically we actually met the first time I worked in Domino's, but, I don't mean to shout them out like that. The first time I worked at the pizza spot. But yeah, Toyota Tercel. Yeah, 1993 Toyota Tercel. And she walked over there and said, nope. Not gonna be able to do it. Not gonna be able to do it. She was like, nope. Whatever game I thought I had been kicking just was not that strong. And I was not mad. I was like, you know what, salute. I'm not mad at you. Not mad at you. I was too big for that car. Oh my God. So that's the other thing. Who said that? Where was that? You should have seen Sugar Shan. I was 6'2", 280. No, that was later. This was a little bit earlier. So I might have been, because when I came out of the Navy, I was still all right. I probably was like I was probably like a good 240. Like a muscular, more muscular, at least 240. Maybe 250 at that point, getting a little chubbier. But yeah, but eventually I was like 280, 285 with my man Big Rose, who is 6'5", 6'4", and at the time almost 400, 350. I would drive him home from Frostburg, and we would literally, the car would literally be scraping the wheels. But that thing never broke down. Never broke down, not once. We brutalized that. Oh my goodness. Big Roosevelt. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was my man. Is my man. So yeah. All right. Let me play this. I'll be right back. Let's enjoy this MichaelParenti hate real quick. I'll be back in a second.
I wrote some papers about it, so I'm really excited to have you here. Hearing you speak, you remind me a lot of a presidential candidate that's out there hitting the show right now, and I'd like to hear what your take was on BernieSanders, because as a former Marine, a combat veteran, someone who studied you, now I follow the man. His stump speeches sound a lot like what you were talking about tonight. So what is your take on BernieSanders?
So the question is, what is Dr. Parenti's view of BernieSanders?
Well, Bernie and I were very close friends for years. He'd come over my house when I lived in Washington, D.C. He came with his son once, and my son was visiting me. I made them dinner. Bernie and I both ran on the Liberty Union ticket in Vermont. I ran for the House of Representatives. Vermont has only one congressman, so you can't get gerrymandered out. But it meant I'd go up and down the whole state, and I got 7% of the vote. Bernie ran for Senate, U.S. Senate. He got 2% of the vote. Not that I'm trying to be committed. And very close to Bernie. His last words to me, I remember when he came to, where the hell was it? In Washington, I think it was. No, it was right in Berkeley, California, when I was living there. Bernie came to Oakland, and he said, "Where have you been? I haven't seen you. Stay in touch with me." I said, "Sure, I will, Bernie." But then came the Yugoslav war, and Bernie sided with President William Clinton and supported the bombing of Yugoslavia, 78 days and nights, depleted uranium, which has left Serbia today with the highest cancer rate in all of Europe. I vigorously opposed that war and wrote a book about it called To Kill a Nation, the attack on Yugoslavia. And Bernie, as I told Huck, Huck was a good friend. I forget Huck's last name. He was a professor from the university who took a leave to go work in Bernie's office when Bernie was now in the House of Representatives. Bernie went to the House of Representatives. He got elected mayor of Burlington and then House of Representatives and then the U.S. Senate. And now he's doing this try for the presidency. What was I saying just now?
What do you think of his campaign? And what do you think of his bid for the presidency?
No, there was something I wanted to say about this. I hate when this happens. When I get tired, that's what starts happening.
You guys split over the Yugoslav war.
Yugoslav war, yeah. I said he's standing shoulder to shoulder with NATO and the CIA and the White House and Bill Clinton and these creepos for a war against these people like this. I said and that's when I broke with him. I stopped sending contributions. I stopped. Furthermore, his salary was way bigger than what I was making. And so when I saw that he was running, and I put on the little thing to see some of the events with 10,000 people, I must admit, I sat there and it was very touching and I was so happy to see it. I was very happy to see Bernie getting up there, 10,000 people, and the powers that be have to deal with him in some way now. It's like a big blister in the way, and they got to deal with him and say, well, blah, blah. And mostly they don't say too much. They just concentrate on Donald Trump, yeah, I think it's great. The trouble is he's still not saying anything about foreign policy. He's still not criticizing. The empire feeds off the republic. We don't need an empire with 70 military bases, 700 military bases all over the world. We don't need to be fighting 2, 3, 4, 5 wars all at the same time. This is crazy. That's all. Bernie hasn't said a word about those things. He hasn't. He's just not said anything about it. So he's good on local issues. He's really, I think, he's a liberal Democrat. He's not a socialist or not even really a left progressive. He's just sort of he'd be a good liberal Democrat. But look at what he says. He says, and we want the rich to pay their share too. What do you mean? We want to stop having the rich rule our lives and rule our minds. That's what we want. And I think he could do a lot better on that. And he's going to have to say, it's not just me. I was alone years ago about his position on foreign policy, but a number of other people have brought it up now too. So he will have to start saying something about foreign policy.
So that was always our first critique when he started repopularizing, and so I certainly appreciated hearing that from Parenti, and I never knew anything about their friendship. This has been brought to my attention a number of times that Parenti denies the Bosnian genocide, and I think deny the atrocities the Serbs committed. Don't have to want bombing to denounce anti-Muslim genocide. I admit I don't know enough about that situation or his argument to assess it, and if he was wrong on that, then absolutely. For instance, I think, like, I don't agree with him saying that on the one hand it's good that the establishment has to deal with him and he has so many people at his rallies, while at the same time while also acknowledging at the same time that Sanders was not a real socialist and maybe at best a liberal Democrat. Like, I don't agree with that. I have the very unpopular opinion that is not helpful. That in fact it works against any sort of advancing analysis around what is or what is not socialism and why it's better than capitalism. I don't think Bernie helped in that at all. So, and he, again, I agree with Bruce Dixon, the sheepdogging. It was more a way of suppressing radicalism, corralling radicalism. So I don't think it was a net positive at all. But I just admit, but beyond that and beyond Parenti's media analysis and Democracy for the Few and Inventing Reality, which are the only two books of his that I actually read in full. Agents Against Empire, right? Agents of Empire. I at least read something like that. I at least read some of that. But I don't pretend to know enough about, hey, look, I was only in the Navy helping pallets of propaganda be lifted to the flight deck to be dropped on what are now former Yugoslavians. They even told us I didn't have the clearance to know what was even on them. So I don't pretend. That's as close that's like admittedly just the extent of my analysis around that whole thing. So he could have very well been wrong on that. Excuse me. Speaking of Yugoslavia, recently watched Sarajevo Safari. Wealthy elites paying to go safari hunting and snipe people in the war zone. It costs more if they kill children. Wow. Definitely not surprised. He has an interesting argument. I don't think it's genocide denial, though. Okay. Again, I'm just that's yeah. Yeah, this was news to me. A couple of people sent me this when they saw me posting something positive about Parenti, and I just don't know. All right, so two more things, probably at least before I wrap up today. So as I said, I saw the FDSignifier video, the 4-hour marathon about TylerPerry. And if any of you have any meaningful criticism of it, I'm interested. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a great time watching it. I didn't watch it all in one sitting, admittedly. But over the few sittings, it was great. But and I admit I appreciate the shout out. And then I did apologize, but this is where it started.
He got his money. TylerPerry is not a hot commodity.
Because it's a question about how does TylerPerry make his money?
White spaces. Never has been, probably never will be. He does have a white fan base, I'm sure. There's evidence that Tyler has always aimed at white fans in some ways. But for the most part, his shows, his movies, the deals he's made from them, that's based on black eyeballs. And it's somehow us that's put him on the level of Steven Spielberg. And that's not supposed to be possible. Every bit of black leftist literature will tell you that capitalism doesn't work for black people like that. And they're right, unless we're talking about TylerPerry. Shout out to Dr. Jared Ball. You've seen him in the last video. Great book, The Myth of Black Buying Power. All that talk about $1 trillion of black buying power for black people, pretty much bullshit. Unless you're talking about TylerPerry. Somehow he did it. He is the challenge to the doctrine that can't be denied. He breaks the rule and validates the black capitalist ideology. And if one person can break it in that level to that degree, shouldn't we maybe start thinking differently about it? Should I delete all of my anti-black excellence videos? Let's revisit this in a few hours.
All right. So that's when I stopped the video on my first watch. And I sent him a text and was like, I think you got it wrong. I was like, are you, because honestly, I was sitting there thinking, is he really going to sit up here and say in front of his millions of viewers that Jared is wrong when it comes to TylerPerry? That TylerPerry is the solution to the myth of Bible? I was like, absolutely not. So I sent him a text. I said, my man, I think you missed. And he wrote back. That quick. That was all it took. I said, what? That's literally where I stopped it right here, is literally where I stopped it to text him. Look, you think
people be like, why do you go out of your way to be petty? And I'd be like,
I'm not, I was like, hold on. And then I was ready to hit him with the,
y'all gotta stop letting these who wasn't there try to rewrite the history, man. I saw this for myself.
I said, that's it. I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so I said, you know, and he did exactly what a principled actor in these moments would do. He said, listen, I know it's a long video. He even said something to the effect, because he was like, I know you have your whole analysis and have seen all these movies. You don't even, if you don't want to go through the whole analysis of the movies, you could skip that. And he told me where I could skip to go find where he comes back to this point. And he's just politely saying, you're jumping the gun. But I didn't do at least that. I did watch the whole thing, and it's very well done. I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed the hate. I enjoyed some of the nuance in there. I enjoyed just a lot of it. I enjoyed the editing. It's very well done. A lot of the arguments, the whole point about building a bigger table and what should be done by Black people with bigger platforms, and what Tyler Harris. I mean, I think he does a lot of, and that was that. So I'm not gonna. That's all I'm gonna play from the video. I do encourage you to check it out on your own. So I was like, you know, so, but I did watch, and then the way he comes back to, I don't know that he I don't think he says it in the way to emphasize certain points that I might want to have to emphasize. For instance, that it's not just an issue of Black eyeballs that makes TylerPerry famous and money, that it's important. It is what FD does come back to. It is the white platforms, investment, et cetera, and so forth. So one of the things you saw him mention there that he does bring up is this article from Forbes magazine. And there was only one aspect of this that I thought FD left out, but was really a small whatever. And the long story short is that, yes, well, as it says here, they're saying, how did he make his money? Why has he been successful? Perry has succeeded for two reasons, says Forbes. He has honed a product that too many others viewed as destined for the discount bin, and he made sure to control it all. And FD does a great job, I think, of explaining and showing this in a better way. That is, that he did. Perry produced a lot of content that targets a level of intellect and a level of politics and a level of Blackness that most people of any background are not really going to be that interested in. But he produced a lot of it, and then he owned all of it. That is, TylerPerry owned all of it and owned it from all the various levels. The writer, director, executive producer, actor, multiple, as FD shows, he pays himself multiply for playing multiple roles, even as an actor. And then he has low production costs. So he's not paying people a lot of money. One of my favorite points that FD shows is that even when he's dealing with a more famous actor, oh man, I can't believe her name just escaped my mind. It'll come to me. But when he's dealing with, but he got her to be in his film because he scheduled his days of shooting her for his film around why she was in Atlanta in the first place, to be in a higher, a bigger production for someone else. In other words, he didn't have to pay for her to be in town. And then he shot her scenes in like 4 days or something like that, or maybe 4 hours, and then moved on. Taraji, exactly. Everybody got it but me. Taraji P. Henson, exactly. But the Oprah connection, of course, inviting, of course, she's going to have to co-sign to a certain point. Even before he made his first TV film or TV show, Perry hauled in more than $100 million from theater ticket sales, moved $20 million worth of merchandise, and collected another $30 million from selling videos of performances. Absolutely. Now, what does this mean? It means he made a lot of money from those black theater audiences. $100 million in ticket sales. So he's not netting $100 million per se, but he's dealing with relatively a lot of money. Now, it's not celebrity money. It's not super famous money, and it wasn't what made him famous. That would not have made him a celebrity, but that's always the point. If you target a black audience and are willing to stay at a certain level of fame and wealth, you can do quite well. It's when it's the desire for upper, more elite levels of celebrity and wealth where the trappings of the further trappings of whiteness become more overt and pronounced. But the other important point, of course, is that what to the entire black community does Tyler Perry bringing in $100 million in theater ticket sales mean? And this is something I think FD does a great job of raising in a different way as a question. Again, back to the point about the bigger the building a table that I and others have always wanted to raise around our critiques of black capitalism and celebrity and so on and so forth. Great, he made $100 million or brought in $100 million in theater ticket sales and $20 million in merchandise and $30 million in video. Okay. But then ultimately, it's when he started hooking up with UPN, WB, and the CW networks, and got syndication with TBS. In other words, as we pointed out in our Mantan Manifesto chapter, that it's when the white media industry said we can make value of Tyler Perry and his version of blackness that we would want to promote even to a handful to that, as they call it, niche white audience that wants black content. This is what they were giving. Lionsgate began pumping out Medea movies. And this was the one part that I thought that FD, I would have, it's not even, I can't even say it's a level of rises to the level of critique, given how good I thought that video was. But I thought this would have been a nice addition. In other words, without Viacom and BET syndication, where he cut himself these sweetheart deals, without Disney and Netflix, the Hulu and the Netflix distribution. In other words, this is where he ends up making a bulk of his money, through white corporate contracted deals. So again, I had jumped the gun with FD saying, you got the buying power thing wrong, but he didn't. He had it absolutely right. He just was setting up a bookend argument that I was being impatient for. But the one part he didn't, that was this reference here: with the help of financial advisor John Kerry at Atlanta's Next Gen Capital, Perry is starting to exploit the films more aggressively overseas, with early success in South Africa, South America, and parts of Europe, all while continuing to self-finance hundreds of new TV episodes and at least one new feature film every year. Now, so again, and what are they saying? white investment capital finds value in the production of Black media content slop that is distributed throughout their international networks for a variety of reasons. Yes, to make money. I would argue also to as counterinsurgent, psychological warfare, propaganda to diminish any calls from a Black community in the United States for revolution, and to encourage disunity among populations from overseas who stay there or come here and engage directly with Black people. The image of black experience and Blackness is completely distorted through all of that. So they benefit from that as well. But the point being that this is what elevates TylerPerry beyond just a relatively successful, financially beneficial situation with his theater. But that's just not enough for some, and certainly not enough for the level of success, so-called, that he's had, and for the level of weaponization against Black communities that he has become. Also, of course, it just mentions here that he has a friendly relationship with Barack Obama, which I would think, if nothing else that I've said or anyone else has said as a criticism, should be enough to show you that, that should be that right there. The other thing was that there was one other thing about this. Where is it in here? Right. That when it came to, and I thought this was brought up, FD brings this up, but just something worthy of highlighting, that in terms of the buying power argument, that and often this claim that Black people should buy land and do this, that, and the third, that the studio deal that TylerPerry got, which I have not really paid that much attention to till that video and looking up a little bit afterwards. I mean, it was a really sweetheart deal that he got with support from the state of Georgia and the mayor of Atlanta, to pay for a big plot. And FD really breaks this down: a big plot of land, of developed land for ultimately less, if you break it down, I think he does a good job of showing it, than what they paid for Cop City. And then, of course, he rents it out to Disney, Hulu, the military, the police, fire department, Oprah, whoever, then he can rent it. He's making money hand over fist doing that too. So he becomes, it's presented to Black and other communities and audiences as this self-made man, but it's really, he is ultimately, it's like a Black media version of what happens with these social media stuff. He's like the Black movie Mark Zuckerberg, where if you sort of stick with some of the mythology, it just starts as like a little school project or a little, Black theater project, but then it gets plugged into the whole military industrial media apparatus, settler colonial apparatus. That's when you've made it. So, all right. One last little bit here. So again, salute to FD for the shout out and for the principled response to my jumping the gun, because I was immediately, I showed you where I stopped it. I was like, stop playing. And that was like 22 minutes into a 4-hour video. I was like, stop playing. So, but and actually there was no aggression. It was just like, I think you got it wrong. He was like, I think you should watch the whole video. And he was right. And it was a fun watch too. Like, even if you don't, it's whatever, Okay. So I've been moving along slowly with this civil rights starter pack from Letterboxd. And I got through one, but I had already done this other one. So the next two movies that were up, let me just pull this back up here to refresh everybody. And then with the startup. We've done all of these already. Till, Rosa Parks, Ruby Bridges, Freedom Riders, Hidden Figures. Then we did Nothing But a Man and Rustin. Oof, that was rough. Then we did, then was this one. And oh man. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Oh man. So I never watched this. This is 1997, Four Little Girls from Spike Lee. I was so, I remember when this came out and I was so, I think still angry with him around Malcolm X and even our little exchange at Towson State. And I was like, I just couldn't, it was just too much pain, too much. But reminding us of Denise McNair, Cynthia Wesley, Addie Mae Collins, and Carol Robertson, four little girls who were killed when the Klan and what's his name? They call him Dynamite Bob or something like that. Blew up the church, the 16th Street Baptist Church, in September 15th, 1963. And yeah, I just was like, man, I can't, but I did go back and watch it, and I'm glad I did. And on the one hand, I got, again, kind of like with the Freedom Riders one, I was, Spike Lee knows how to make a documentary. He knows what he's got that with the jazz and the slow, the shots but I think that Spike has a legit deep enough appreciation for Black people that sort of that basic unpoliticized appreciation for Black people that he would even want to use his relative position to do this. But then and I'm watching it and it's just, obviously the story is just brutal. And then at one point I felt like they start going far away from the focus on the girls, because they're giving the history of Alabama and civil rights. And at one point I felt like, well, damn, are they gonna, like, this is supposed to be about the four little girls. But I also felt like, but thank you, because like it was brutal. They do, like, you end up seeing the graphic depictions, and it was like the same. I felt akin to the arguments being made now around why we should not turn away from the images coming out of Gaza and the destruction of children and the 160 children killed in Iran, that we should not turn away from the images as they come out to the extent they do, because they show the images of the bodies of these girls in the documentary. And it is just, and again, it's back to that whole, I'm amazed at the families being interviewed talking of forgiveness. I'm just amazed at I can't, it's just like how, so, but I'm watching it but then eventually I'm like, wait a minute, here come all the talking heads. Here comes Andy Young. Here comes Howell Raines. Do any of you even remember Howell Raines? The white Southern former editor of the New York Times. And I saw Howell Raines come up in here talking about what the South was like and telling Spike Lee about the South. And it says New York Times editor underneath. And Howell Raines. And I said, I remember old Howell Raines. And it started.
People be like, why do you go out of your way to be?
Because when I went to the University of Maryland's College of Journalism for my doctorate degree in 2002, adorning the walls along the lines of the College of Journalism were all of the luminaries that had come through that space. The former New York Times, this, Washington Post, that, Wall Street, this, NBC, that, this one, that, this, that, all the luminaries. And on the wall was this, at the time, close to my relatively young black man, blackface, Jason Blair. And I remember the first time I went down there, I was like, this is an odd include, like a young black man on the walls of this august hallway. And they said, oh yeah, no, Jason Blair was here just a little while before you got here. And he left the graduate program early because he was so talented that he went up to the New York Times. And he's there now and carrying the banner of the University of Maryland and College Park and the School of Journalism and New York Times and almost tacitly, this is, you know, if you get it right, Jared and others, this could be you. And then the news broke. Now it says here 2011, but this was in 2003, July of 2000 or June of 2003. Howell Raines, Gerald Boyd resigned as New York Times top editors. And why? New York Times announced today that let me get this. Yeah. New York Times announced today that Joseph Leyvild, former executive editor of the Times, has been named interim executive director, and that Howell Raines and Gerald M. Boyd have resigned as executive editor and managing editor, respectively. No one will be named interim managing editor, the Times said. The resignations are unprecedented at the Times, but they stemmed from the equally unprecedented scandal at the paper in which reporter Jason Blair admitted fabricating material. National correspondent Rick Bragg resigned over a failure to credit freelancers' work in his pieces, and newsroom morale sank while complaints about Raines and Boyd's management style, described as top-down and autocratic, rose. And at the time, as someone who had been in there condemned as a socialist and a radical who had been exiled eventually up into the outer realms of that school, to have my money taken away without being told, what do they call it? It's not a scholarship, but the funding that came with being accepted into the program, they took that away. And after all of that, I said, you're golden boy. You're golden boy. And then with the now dearly departed Lee Thornton, who, she did me so dirty. Oh man, this long career, this black woman with this long legendary career in journalism. And I had been assigned to her in the grad. She did me dirty. Fellowship. Thank you, Leah. Thank you. And she, oh man, she even apologized. She said, I didn't know that the dean would react this way when I went to him with my complaint. And I was like, well, what? And what was the complaint? That I was too political. I was trying to get her she was doing a TV show. She was the host of a TV show, and I was supposed to get her guests. And I kept getting her activists from the DC area, and she kept hating it. She was like, I'm not talking to some nationalist I'm not. She said, but I did my thesis at Howard on Kwame Ture on Stokely. So I'm not afraid of radicalism. But stop bringing me. And she went to the dean and complained about me. And she said, I didn't know that they would do that to you. I didn't mean. Anyway, one day she's in front of her students and she says, Jared's a grad student, and she's talking to her journalism students, and she brings me over and she says, so what do you, maybe you would like to share with our students what you think of the Jason Blair scandal, and how he how his ethics and behavior demeaned this, that, and the third, or whatever, something like that. And I said something to the effect, and I wonder if this had anything to do with why she said what she said about me to the D. But I said something like, yeah, he faked some stories, but obviously as a new journalist, despite how that was reported in the piece I showed you there, he obviously saw that the environment was suitable to that kind of behavior. He obviously, I would never think that he invented a new form of criminality or journalistic malpractice. He must have seen from other seasoned reporters that this is how you get over. This is how you survive. This is how you make your quotas. And she didn't like that. She didn't like that at all. And then they took his picture down off the wall and all this stuff. So yeah, Howell Raines. And my point, though, in bringing it up and having fun with that little bit down memory lane, is that Four Little Girls does what I keep, and many of us keep doing, as we complain about the projection and promotion of First Cinema, and why the Vernon philosophy is important. Because of course we would want the story of those girls to be remembered and told, and the crackers that did that to be held up and condemned and all this other kind of stuff. Of course. But then the analysis gets safely couched in the Andy Youngs and the Howell Raineses. Now this part was funny, but he even brings back George Wallace at the end of his life, who brings in Ed, his black friend. And what a scene that is. What a scene that is, where George Wallace lighting his cigar, telling Spike Lee, they got me wrong, and not about racism. In fact, come here, Ed. Come here. Ed comes over and stands next to him with a look on his face of, I read it as, Spike, don't call this out, bro. It is what it is. We all know what it is. Don't call this out. Ed says not a word. Just stands there looking at Spike, looking at the camera like, it is what it is. This is my best friend, Ed. My best friend. And then we get the Taylor Branches, the legendary white historian of the civil rights era. We get who, again, establishment history, not bad history. And Dr. Burroughs knows a lot more of that history than I do, of Branch's work than I do. So it's not that it's bad history, but it's just establishment history. As Dr. Burroughs points out, it's that you get tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to, in advance, sit down in a corner for years and research and write your books. Then we get, because this movie was made in 1997, this documentary, we get James Bevel and his commentary. And how odd is it looking back now that he was doing youth work in SNCC in the civil rights movement? And I'll let you Google James Bevel for that. I'm not going to go ahead and sully this live stream and demonetize and shadow ban my channel off of that. But whoa. But then it's followed up, and right after James Bevel, we get Bill Cosby. Perfectly, right on time. Then they come back with Reggie White, the late NFL pass rushing legend that most often don't remember, was a super conservative Christian. Super backwards conservative Christian. Wyatt T. Walker, the legendary reverend, who at least I have on I used to have on a lecture tape with Dr. Clark talking about how Jesus was black. Ozzie Davis, the late great actor, Walter Cronkite, and I wrote in my notes, establishment. And then my last point, reinscribes acceptable leadership and narrative continuity leading to Black bourgeois politics. And that's what we get. That's what we're meant to get with these kinds of movies. Drag you through the emotional nightmare and horror, through the depths of the nightmare that was. Have us sit there and watch the mothers and the families crying and the remembrance and all that. Oh my God, it's horrific. Very well done. Spike can do whatever with the cinematography, or whatever, and the music and but all just carefully narrated and constrained within what are the acceptable politics and responses. Super duper conservative. All right. So this is how I'm gonna bring up an oldie but a goodie to conclude with my thoughts on what was the next film in this series, One Night in Miami, and then we'll wrap here for the day. And so thank you all. James Bevel. Oh please, Yipper. Trigger warning. If you're not familiar with that civil rights legend and what the downfall that came shortly thereafter, after he taped that interview for Spike Lee. He would have been the one Black friend on Epstein Island had he lived long enough. I'll leave it at that. He might have been the civil rights representative on Epstein Island, son. All right, everybody. Let me conclude with this little bit of fun here for my thoughts on One Night in Miami. And again, thank you all very much for joining me this afternoon. Please do like, share, subscribe, support the Patreon. At least joining for free for no other reason as like a place just in case. You never know. You never know. But it's just a good place, an alternative place to just for us to gather just in case. And of course, do the same with Black Liberation Media. Millennials Are Killing Capitalism, and all of our other evolving, spots. All right, but this is where I'll leave us on One Night in Miami. Thanks again, everybody. Peace only if you're willing to fight for it, as Fred Hampton used to say. And I'll catch you next time. I have another Black film for you. Excellent. And we've already figured out how this film is going to get our white audience. Great. Because it's a Black film, it's going to get Black audiences. But we know we need that mainstream as well. It's a film based on a play about Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown. And it's called One Night in Miami. Okay, but this is the big time of online streaming. We man-tan manifesto around here, and again, I'm telling you, we do that very well. That manifesto is very dope. Yeah. But what will that mean here? We will provide a steady dose of Black men blaming Black men, and racism will largely be reduced to a caricatured use of the N-word by the Big Lebowski's Big Brother. Hard R, hard R. Nice. Yeah. But all these men, where are the women? We see Betty Shabazz long enough to make Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam the primary antagonist, saying nothing of the state. It's our standard approach to depictions of Malcolm X. Wow. Whites do hate the Nation of Islam, and Black people fear them too much to say anything. What? Huh? And we have Regina King in her directorial debut. Nice. But it still is 4 Black men who at various points in their lives and careers have terrified our target audience. Won't it be difficult to make sure that it's written to their comfort levels? Not at all. Barely it will hardly be a hindrance. The screenplay is written by the author of the original play, and if not on this project, we're sure he's going to go on to demonstrate his soul. Great. So what will happen in this film? Well, even though the meeting between these 4 men actually happened, the details are completely fictionalized. So we get to collapse, confuse, and transpose timelines in order to do what we need to do. Nice. Fictionalized depictions of real people and events are dope. Yeah. Well, sort of, right? Because Malcolm did in fact meet also with Kwame Nkrumah, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Muhammad Babu, and even Coretta Scott King. But do we have a screenplay written about these meetings produced by a future Disney Pixar writer? And it's also true that those other meetings happened separately, occurred over more than one night, and we know a good amount about what was actually said in those meetings. It is easier to man-tan our manifesto using a fictional account of one night. That's why we picked this story and why you also don't really need to be all up on my back about it. I would never want to be there. So how are we man-tanning here? We're going to start with a failed Sam Cooke performance that actually happened many years before the events of this film, so that we can shift the timeline of his dropping his more famous "A Change Is Gonna Come," which more easily helps us establish the largely false binary between revolutionary and sellout that we're going to use throughout. Simple binaries are dope, and again, good thing it takes place all in one night. Exactly, and why we like this as source material. No chance for a focus on these men, the movements that impacted them, or their actual politics to be truly explored. And actually, one night is even a stretch. Ali didn't actually make it to the room until after midnight. Right, no time for much more than Ali playing dumb, young, and confident, Cooke being mostly just a sounding board for Malcolm's rants, and Jim Brown further reducing Malcolm X and his never explored politics to being only about his complexion. But not the selection or treatment of women. Regina King is directing her first feature film. Exactly. And then we can have more from Sam Cooke demeaning the Nation of Islam and Elijah Muhammad. But didn't COINTELPRO mention Malcolm and even Elijah Muhammad as potential threats? And Wendy Wolf, the editor of A Lie of Reinvention, talked about how as she was growing up, she was terrified of Malcolm. Whites fear Malcolm and need him distilled. So here, he just yells and then cries. Those we fear being reduced to tears pending loss and death is dope. Yeah. So far, this sounds great, but are we sure this writer can deliver a strong finish? We will wrap with an out-of-context montage that plays under Sam Cooke's A Change Is Gonna Come. Indeed, it has. I mix what I like.
And what did you sacrifice?
Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, have set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything.
I mix what I like.